So, The Weird and the Eerie by Mark Fisher is a 2017, um, although I think it was published posthumously because of, I believe it was a tragic suicide actually, with Fisher when he, after I think his manuscript was published, was the last thing that was to be published by him. But I'm not exactly sure about the details. But it is a very intriguing. I know that word's kind of overused, but very definitely compelling case for the different strange, like the strange kind of not discrepancy, but like the strange. Um, there's like a marked distinction between the weird and eerie, but also how they play out together. And he brings that up in order to kind of shine light on the topic, or rather, darkness. He brings up things of a Lovecraftian nature. Like he brings up a lot of H.P. Lovecraft's, especially like the Necronomicon, I believe, which is actually a real kind of book of spells and of the dead. And I'm not sure like, quite the origin when it was made, but like definitely at least Middle Ages, maybe maybe Renaissance. I'm not too sure, but I think it is a genuine thing. Like that or stuff like the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I guess it was kind of like that. It had to do with like Necronomicon, and of course in the Evil Dead, it kind of reprised the role of being this like ridiculous kind of Book of the Dead, pretty much kind of kind of trope. But anyway, less comically so. There was a Fisher takes it in the direction of um, some sci-fi, some speculative fiction. Like he mentions the stuff of like Daphne du Maurier and her, I think it's Don't Look Now, and how the weird and the eerie in the sense was the fact that there's this in wasn't it Peter Weir, but I don't know if it's Hal Ashby, but it was a '70s movie and it starred Donald Sutherland, and he was basically this, their one of their daughters goes missing, and they are searching for it, and like one of their, there's this said to be rumored this kind of small child going about murdering people, and spoiler alert, it actually ends up being a midget that just kind of resembles and wears this red dress to kind of. So he's saying that the weird and the eerie is kind of it actually digs deeper into kind of the philosophical underlying structure, like the very fact that something is there's a subject and then an object, like there's a fact of not knowing, like there's the epistemological fact, the fact that you can't empirically, it's metaphysical, right? The fact that in excuse this share, wow, the fact that in Kafka, that a lot of the things like the castle, for example, like is stuff that's like the castle's always so out of reach. It's never going to be there, and that could symbolize a host of different things. It's just rife with symbiology and thematics and semiotics too. Which is why I'd like to read Roland Barthes too, like his mythologies as well. Uh, he also had a really great essay called on wrestling, I believe, on American wrestling, and how he called it the spectacle of excess, which might explain a lot of today's entertainment being like a spectacle of just of kind of decadence of things being so over the top, which is this perfectly sums up why wrestling, in my sense, like especially with the WWE, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't know nothing about sports really, but it's just like um, just even like the Rock's catchphrases, like just being like, like just so over the top and cartoonish, or John Cena. His name is John Cena. Like it's all meant to be uh, surreal and like just like ridiculous. And I think that kind of like in a Paul Verhoeven movie, I guess, where violence is so just like ridiculous and so hyper surreal, I guess, that it's just laughable. You have no choice but to laugh at it. But that is going. I think Fisher is pointing out what goes even further into the weird and the eerie is the fact that you can't know, or that like in Under the Skin, for example, the fact that the main character, played by Scarlett Johansson, it's obviously based off a sci-fi novel. I've yet to read it. Actually, I'd like to read it, but and how she's interacting with other men, and how she's like she doesn't know their motives, and they're like, well, she's an attractive young lady or woman, so like we're obviously attracted to her, but like she doesn't understand, so she's just kind of like mimicking the surface level. That's eerie because it's he's definitely, I like the point is that he's trying to say is that things that are eerie aren't necessarily, you can't just like force it, like like things that, that's why I think like a lot of like um people in horror films or something, like like I never really found like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre really that funny. It's because it's just like, oh, it's just this guy, and he's like got his, like his, um, it seems like trying too hard to kind of like make it, or it's not hard enough rather, that it's trying to buy over your like kind of like suspense and trying to like cajole you into being like, but isn't it so creepy though that these insane things are happening, and there's just no stopping it. Like you, like if this guy with a crazy guy, with a who was bullied in school, there's always the same backstory of like, or in Carrie where it's like like um maybe I'm giving it, there's probably not enough credit to this movie, but like when Carrie, when she's like, it's like they push her over the edge and then she ends up like magically kind of like exercising revenge on them. It's the same thing with The Exorcist, like The Believer. This is what I hate too. It's like The Exorcist is turned into this comedic spectacle, like this of excess too. Yeah, just completely. It's just like, but it's this weird tiny little girl, and it's not even just one girl now. It's not even Linda Blair anymore. It's now like I haven't seen the movie, so I'm just crapping on it wholesale. But yeah, it's now two girls. It's like twins or whatever, and they're like doing a weird shining twin, or were they twins? I don't even know. But it's just like, ooh, like it's so, isn't it so disgusting, or isn't it so like body horror? Like there's a way of doing body horror that works. These are age old tropes, like uh, Francoise Rabelais, Gargantuan and Pantagruel is a perfect example. I haven't read it yet because it's literally like this big. I have it on my bookshelf. In fact, it's like actually too big to actually put on my bookshelf. But I will get around to it, I swear. But the way, for example, that Mikhail Bakutin, or Bukutin, not the political like philosopher kind of intelligentsia guy, but the other guy, the literary critic, scholar of the arts and literature, humanities, who did his polemics on I think the troubling poetics of Dostoevsky. The fact that it's actually um, the grotesque body is a trope that he points out as being like um, it's again like it's like pre proto Monty Python, like the fact, like with Mr. Creosote, or or just like really just ridiculous fat distended expanding people suddenly exploding. And that's the reason it's so funny, is because it's you have no choice, like I said, not to labor this point home, but yeah, there's like no other alternative. But yeah, the Mark Fisher was like, like he did another one I really liked called Capitalist Realism, and I like how he makes it kind of accessible, at least for in my eyes, for to be able to kind of deduce what's going on, and then he uses kind of like socio philosophical psychological things, but he's not privy to just or partial to just one. Like he kind of like draws from the arts, like he'll draw from Kafka a lot, or he'll draw from science fiction. Even he even mentioned like Interstellar too, like how that one kind of the reason, the same reason that I think I remember kind of wincing in the theater, but like at the after for a movie that came out like no almost 10 years ago, right? But it's still like I remember being thoroughly impressed, aside from that one part when it was like, it turns out that the answer to all this was love, and it's just like he was saying that like that was kind of a cop out, and he was like trying to go through like why, or how that could have been like written better, I suppose, but we forgive him for that. And this is coming from somebody who's not like a huge Nolan fan. I mean, I love his earlier work, especially like Memento, It Follows, I think, or The Following, I think. something. It was kind of like Darren Aronofsky's early stuff with Pi. It had that kind of um, sensibility of like not using what you have to your best advantage, I guess. Taking the best kind of using it, wisely, your resources wisely to make like a really compelling story that can stand on its own 2 feet. So yeah, especially like that. I know his brother Jonathan Nolan also wrote Westworld, which I also have some problems with, and I kind of ducked out by season 2 or 3. But first season was pretty good. Though. I really like Michael Crichton. I obviously still got to crack him open. But yeah, Mark Fisher's a weird and eerie. Definitely recommend. I know this is like a bit different because it's actually a book about books. Um, but I guess just to change it up a little bit. So yeah, thanks for watching.